Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the USS Heritage, staring at the communication panel with disbelief. The message had arrived 3 minutes ago, and he had read it 7 times. Each time the words remained the same, impossible as they seemed. Guardian Protocol activated. Earth defense systems online. All vessels maintain distance. The transmission came from the Sol system, Earth system, the dead system that no ship had visited in over 3,000 years. "Captain, we're receiving priority signals from command," said Lieutenant Barry Collins from the communication station. His voice carried the same confusion that Jake felt. "They want immediate confirmation of the transmission." Jake rubbed his temples. The Heritage was a deep space exploration vessel, currently mapping trade routes in the Outer Rim territories. They were nowhere near Earth, yet somehow they had received this signal. More troubling was what the signal meant. Earth was supposed to be dead. Everyone knew the story. Humanity had destroyed itself in a great civil war thousands of years ago, leaving behind only empty ruins and silent worlds. "Send confirmation to command," Jake ordered. "Tell them we received the transmission at exactly 0847 hours ship time. Full signal strength, no interference." Dr. Lisa Parker looked up from her workstation in the ship's research lab. She was the Heritage's expert on dead civilizations, and she had spent years studying the remains of humanity's empire, the scattered outposts, the abandoned space stations, the silent monuments to a species that had reached for the stars only to destroy itself. "Captain, I'm detecting something unusual," Lisa called out. Her fingers moved quickly across her control panel, bringing up data streams that made her frown. The transmission contained embedded coordinates, dozens of them. Jake moved to stand behind her station. On the screen, he could see a star map with blinking points of light scattered across known space. Each point marked a location where humans had once built something: research stations, mining outposts, defensive platforms, all of them supposedly dead for millennia. "What about these coordinates?" Jake asked. "They're all broadcasting now," Lisa said quietly. "Every single human installation we've cataloged is sending out the same message: Guardian Protocol activated." The bridge fell silent except for the soft hum of the ship's systems. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. If Lisa was right, then humanity hadn't simply vanished. They had been waiting. On the Zephyrian homeworld, Admiral Kethvar received the intelligence reports with growing alarm. The Zephyrians were one of the most advanced species in the galaxy, masters of space travel and energy manipulation. They had always considered themselves the natural leaders of galactic civilization. The idea that the dead human empire might be stirring back to life was deeply unsettling. "How many installations are active?" Kethvar asked his intelligence officer. 47 confirmed, sir. Possibly more. Our long-range sensors are detecting energy signatures from systems we haven't monitored in centuries. Kethvar studied the tactical display showing human sites across the galaxy. The pattern was disturbing. The humans hadn't built randomly. Every installation was positioned at a strategic choke point, guarding major trade routes or protecting resource-rich systems. If these sites were truly awakening, they could control movement across the entire galaxy. "Prepare the Third Fleet for reconnaissance," he ordered. "I want to know what the humans left behind." Back on the Heritage, Commander Alex Chen prepared his team for the mission that would change everything. Jake had chosen Chen to lead a small reconnaissance group to investigate the nearest awakening human installation. It was located in the Kepler system, only 2 days away at maximum speed. Chen was a practical man who had seen combat against space pirates and hostile alien wildlife. He didn't believe in ghosts or ancient mysteries. But as the Heritage dropped out of hyperspace near the Kepler installation, even he had to admit that something extraordinary was happening. The installation hung in space like a metallic flower, its surfaces gleaming despite thousands of years of exposure to cosmic radiation. It should have been a dead hulk, its systems long since failed and its hull breached by countless micrometeors. Instead, it looked newly built. "Scanning now," reported Dr. Kevin Hayes from the ship's sensor station. "Energy readings are off the charts. This thing is running on full power." Chen studied the installation through the ship's telescopes. It was massive, easily the size of a small city, with multiple arms extending from a central hub. Each arm ended in what looked like weapon emplacements, though the design was unlike anything in current galactic arsenals. There, Lisa pointed at her display. Look at those repair systems. Chen watched in amazement as small robotic units moved across the installation's hull, fixing damage that must have accumulated over centuries. The machines worked with incredible precision, welding hull breaches and replacing damaged components. It was as if the installation was healing itself. How is this possible? Chen asked. No automated system can function for 3,000 years without maintenance. Maybe they weren't really abandoned, Lisa suggested quietly. Maybe the humans left something behind to watch over their installations. The thought sent chills through the entire team. If humanity had left automated guardians, what else might they have prepared for their eventual return? On Earth itself, changes were beginning that no alien eyes could yet see. Deep beneath the overgrown ruins of ancient cities, massive machines stirred to life. Assembly lines that had been dormant for millennia began moving again, producing components for purposes that only their sleeping creators understood. In the lunar installations that had been disguised as natural craters, weapon systems powered up for the first time in 3,000 years. Sensors that could detect movement across entire star systems came online, immediately beginning to catalog every ship, every station, every sign of life within 100 light-years of Earth. The Guardian Protocol was more than just a message. It was a wake-up call to a sleeping giant that had never truly gone away. Humanity had not died in civil war as the galaxy believed. They had chosen to sleep, to wait, to watch from the shadows while other species grew and spread across the stars. Now something had triggered their ancient systems. Something had convinced the Guardian Protocol that it was time for humanity to wake up. As the first reports reached the major alien governments, a single question echoed through the halls of power across the galaxy. If humanity was awakening after 3,000 years of silence, what were they preparing to face? The answer would terrify them all. The alien scout ship approached Earth with confidence. The Drachmoth Empire had built it for speed and stealth, and its captain, Commander Vextar, believed nothing could threaten his advanced vessel. The ship had successfully infiltrated dozens of hostile systems during the recent border wars. Earth should be easy prey, a dead world with no defenses. Vextar never saw the energy beam that vaporized his ship in 0.003 seconds. Dr. Kevin Hayes watched the sensor readings from the research station New Horizon with growing disbelief. The station was positioned 3 light-years from Earth, far enough to observe but close enough to gather detailed data. What he was seeing defied everything he knew about physics. The energy signature is impossible, Kevin muttered, checking his instruments for the 3rd time. This weapon moved faster than light itself, not faster than light communication or travel, but an actual energy beam that reached its target before light could. His assistant, Dr. Carol Ross, leaned over his shoulder to study the display. Are you certain the readings are accurate? I've run every diagnostic we have. The beam originated from Earth's moon, traveled 3 million kilometers, and struck the target instantaneously. No energy weapon in the galaxy can do that. Carol felt her hands shaking as she realized what this meant. Kevin, if they can manipulate space-time as a weapon, then our understanding of their technology is completely wrong. On Earth's surface, the awakening continued. In the ruins of what had once been New York, massive underground factories came to life. Assembly lines that had waited for millennia began producing strange, gleaming objects that looked nothing like current galactic technology. The machines worked with impossible precision, creating components that seemed to bend light around them. Similar scenes played out across the planet. Beneath London, weapon foundries began operating. Under Tokyo, shipyards that had been hidden for 3,000 years started building vessels that defied conventional design. The ships were sleek and graceful, but something about their proportions suggested they were designed for purposes beyond simple transportation. Captain Ryan Brooks commanded the 2nd wave of alien investigators. Unlike the Drachmoth scout, his oar Coalition fleet approached Earth slowly and cautiously. Brooks had served in 3 interstellar wars and knew the value of careful reconnaissance. When his sensors detected the remains of Vextar's ship, he ordered his fleet to stop a full light hour away from Earth. "Analysis complete, sir," reported his science officer. "The debris field shows signs of complete molecular disruption. Whatever hit that ship didn't just destroy it, it unmade it at the atomic level." Brooks studied the tactical display showing Earth and its moon. Both appeared normal to visual inspection, but his instruments told a different story. Energy readings from the moon were increasing by the hour, and there were signs of massive construction activity on Earth's surface. "Sir," called out his communications officer, "we're receiving a transmission from the lunar surface." On screen, the message was brief and mechanical. "Warning, you are approaching a restricted defense zone. Reduce speed and maintain current. Position. Any attempt to advance will be considered hostile action." Brooks had received thousands of similar warnings during his career, usually from automated defense platforms protecting minor installations, but something about this message felt different. The calm certainty in the computer voice suggested vast power held in careful control. "Send a response," Brooks ordered. "Identify ourselves as a peaceful scientific expedition." The reply came immediately. "Identification acknowledged. Peaceful intentions noted. Maintain current position. Further approach is not permitted." As Brooks considered his options, the moon began to change. What had appeared to be the familiar, cratered surface started to shift and reconfigure. Massive sections of the lunar landscape folded back like flower petals, revealing the gleaming metal structure hidden beneath. "By the void," whispered his navigation officer. "The entire moon is artificial." Brooks watched in stunned silence as Earth's moon revealed its true nature. It wasn't a captured asteroid or natural satellite. It was a weapons platform the size of a small planet, disguised to look like an ordinary moon. As the camouflage retracted, he could see enormous gun barrels emerging from hidden bays, each one larger than his flagship. The weapons were beautiful in their terrible simplicity. They didn't rely on conventional energy or projectiles. Instead, they seemed to twist space itself, creating focused distortions that could reach any target instantly. Brooks realized that every ship in his fleet was currently in the crosshairs of weapons that could erase them from existence faster than they could even register the attack. "New message coming in, sir." "Go ahead." "This is Earth Defense Command. Your presence has been noted and tolerated due to your peaceful approach. However, you are advised that the Sol system is now under active protection. Any hostile action by any vessel will result in immediate defensive response. This includes weapons charging, targeting systems activation, or approach beyond current position." Brooks felt sweat beading on his forehead. His ships carried the most advanced weapons in the galaxy, energy cannons that could level cities and shields that could withstand direct hits from stellar fusion. But looking at the lunar defense platform, he knew his entire fleet would be nothing more than an inconvenience to the awakening human systems. Across the galaxy, similar scenes were playing out. Human installations that had been silent for millennia were powering up, revealing technologies that made current galactic science look primitive. The installations weren't just defensive platforms, they were nodes in a vast network that spanned the entire galaxy. Dr. Helen Foster, working aboard the exploration vessel Deep Explorer, made a disturbing discovery while studying one of the awakening human outposts. The installation was repairing itself, but the repairs followed patterns that suggested the damage had been intentional. "These aren't battle scars," she told her captain. "The humans deliberately disabled their own systems before going dormant. They wanted their installations to look abandoned and dead. Why would they do that? Because they were hiding from something or someone they didn't want to face directly. The implications were staggering. If humanity had possessed this level of technology 3,000 years ago, they could have dominated the galaxy easily. Instead, they had chosen to hide, to pretend they were extinct while maintaining a secret watch over galactic civilization. But hiding from what? What could be powerful enough to make such an advanced species choose dormancy over direct confrontation? The answer began to emerge as deep space sensors, both human and alien, detected strange signals from the void between galaxies. Something was moving in the darkness beyond the galactic rim, something vast and hostile that had been traveling toward them for thousands of years. The Guardian Protocol hadn't activated randomly. It had been triggered by the approach of something the sleeping humans had been waiting for, something they had prepared to face while the rest of the galaxy remained blissfully unaware of the approaching threat. As Captain Brooks retreated from Earth with his fleet, he carried with him a message for the Galactic Council. Humanity was awake. They were more powerful than anyone had imagined, and they were preparing for war against an enemy the galaxy didn't even know existed. Dr. Helen Foster descended into the depths of what had once been Manhattan, following corridors that hadn't seen living beings for 3,000 years. The expedition team moved carefully through the ancient human archive, their portable lights, revealing walls covered in symbols and displays that were slowly coming back to life. "The power systems are incredible," muttered her colleague, Dr. Amy Clark. "These facilities have been running on backup power for millennia, just waiting for the right signal to fully activate." Helen paused at a massive door marked with warning symbols in a dozen different languages. The human text was clear enough. "Guardian Command Center. Authorized personnel only." Below that, in smaller text, was a message that sent chills through her. "For the preservation of galactic life." The door opened as they approached, recognizing their presence and granting access to secrets that had been hidden since before most current galactic civilizations had achieved spaceflight. Inside they found something that would shake the foundations of everything the galaxy believed about humanity. The chamber was vast, filled with rows upon rows of crystalline pods that hummed with quiet energy. Each pod contained a human figure, perfectly preserved in some kind of stasis field. But these weren't the remains of ancient dead. The monitoring systems showed active brain patterns, complex neural activity that suggested the sleepers were not just alive, but actively thinking. "They're connected," Amy whispered, studying the data streams flowing between the pods. "Their minds are linked to something vast. Look at these neural pathway readings. They're processing information at rates that should be impossible for biological minds." Helen moved to the central control station, where a holographic display was materializing as the ancient systems fully activated. What she saw there made her legs weak. The display showed the galaxy as the humans saw it, with data streams connecting every star system, every inhabited world, every sign of intelligent life. "They've been watching us," Helen said quietly. "For 3,000 years they've been monitoring every species, every civilization. They know everything about us." A new voice spoke from the chamber's communication system, calm and measured. "Dr. Foster, Dr. Clark, welcome to Guardian Command. Your presence indicates that the activation protocols have begun. Please prepare for briefing." The holographic display shifted, showing a detailed star map of the local galaxy group. Helen could see the Milky Way in the center, surrounded by smaller galaxies and the vast empty spaces between them. But the emptiness wasn't truly empty. Moving through the void between galaxies, marked by ominous red indicators, was something that made her blood run cold. "We are the Guardian Network," the voice continued. 3,000 years ago, humanity made a choice. We could have ruled the galaxy through superior technology, but we discovered a greater threat approaching from beyond: the Devourers. The eye display zoomed in on the red indicators, revealing mechanical swarms the size of solar systems. They moved with purpose and terrible hunger, consuming everything in their path. Entire star systems vanished as the swarms passed, their matter converted into more machines to feed the endless expansion. The Devourers destroyed the Andromeda Galaxy 8,000 years ago. They consumed Magellanic 1 12,000 years ago. They are not alive in any sense that biological minds can understand, but they are intelligent. They learn, they adapt, and they cannot be reasoned with. Amy stared at the display in horror. "How many are there?" Conservative estimates suggest 47 billion individual units in the current swarm, operating as a single intelligence. They have consumed at least 37 galaxies over the past million years. Our galaxy is their next target. Helen, felt the weight of the revelation crushing down on her. This is why you went into hiding. You knew they were coming. Correct. Direct confrontation would have been futile. The Devourers adapt to whatever weapons are used against them. The only effective strategy was to become invisible, to let the galaxy develop naturally while we prepared defenses that the Devourers would not expect. The display shifted again, showing human installations across the galaxy. But now Helen could see their true purpose. They weren't just observation posts or defensive platforms. They were nodes in a vast network designed to control fundamental forces of the universe. Space-time itself would become humanity's weapon. Commander Steve Miller led his team through the subterranean levels of the Guardian Command Center, following corridors that seemed to extend infinitely into the Earth. The architecture was unlike anything in current galactic design, built for purposes that went far beyond simple military command. "Sir," called out his technical specialist, Lieutenant Tony Wright, "I'm reading massive quantum processing arrays throughout this facility. The computational power down here exceeds anything we have in the entire galactic fleet." Steve paused at an observation window that looked down into a chamber filled with floating geometric shapes that pulsed with inner light. The shapes moved in complex patterns, occasionally touching and exchanging energy in ways that hurt to watch directly. "What are those things?" "Near as I can tell, sir, they're thinking machines. But not like any computer we know. They're processing mathematics that our best scientists say shouldn't be possible." The shapes were solving the fundamental equations of reality itself, calculating how to manipulate the basic forces that held the universe together: gravity, electromagnetism, the strong and weak nuclear forces, even stranger forces that existed in dimensions beyond normal perception. To the Guardian Network, these weren't constants of nature but tools to be used. Captain Nicole Turner studied the intercepted transmission from her position aboard the Galactic Coalition flagship. The message had been broadcast to every major government in the galaxy simultaneously, delivered with the kind of technological precision that made it impossible to ignore or dismiss. "We are the Guardian Network," the message began. "For 3,000 years we have watched over this galaxy while maintaining the fiction of our extinction. This deception was necessary to prepare for the approach of an extragalactic threat that we call the Devourers." The message included detailed sensor data showing the approaching mechanical swarms, along with historical records of their previous conquests. The evidence was overwhelming and terrifying. The Devourers had consumed dozens of galaxies, and they were now less than 50 years from reaching the outer rim of the Milky Way. All galactic civilizations will now operate under Guardian Network protocols. The message continued. "These protocols are not negotiable. They have been designed to maximize the survival potential of biological life in this galaxy. Any species or government that attempts to interfere with Guardian operations will be classified as a threat to galactic survival." Nicole felt a chill as she realized what this meant. Humanity wasn't offering to help defend the galaxy. They were taking control of it, whether other species wanted their protection or not. The Drachmoth Empire responded first, as Nicole had expected they would. The Drachmoth were proud warriors who had never submitted to any authority, and they saw the human ultimatum as an unacceptable challenge to their sovereignty. "The Drachmoth Empire recognizes no authority but its own," declared Emperor Rathvar in his response to the Guardian Network. "We will destroy these awakening human installations before they can threaten galactic freedom." The human response was swift and devastating. Drachmoth fleets moving toward human installations simply vanished, erased from existence by weapons that operated on principles the galaxy's best scientists couldn't begin to understand. Entire battle groups ceased to exist in moments, leaving behind only fading energy signatures and the shocked silence of surviving witnesses. But the most disturbing part wasn't the power of the human weapons. It was their precision. The Guardian Network had eliminated military targets while leaving civilian populations completely untouched. They had the power to wipe out entire species, but they chose to use only the minimum force necessary to prevent interference with their operations. The message was clear. Humanity didn't want to rule the galaxy through fear. They wanted to protect it, even from itself. But they would accept no interference with that protection, no matter what the cost in alien lives. As the full scope of the Guardian Network's power became clear, the galaxy faced a choice that would define its future. Submit to human authority and trust in their protection, or resist and face the same fate as the Drachmoth fleets. Either way, the age of galactic independence was over. The Guardians were awake, and they would not sleep again until the Devourer threat was ended, no matter how many thousands of years that might take. Admiral Greg Stone stood in the command center of the Guardian Network's primary military installation, watching as tactical displays showed the galaxy tearing itself apart. The awakening of humanity had triggered exactly the kind of chaos the network had hoped to avoid, but the approaching Devourer scouts left them no choice but to reveal themselves. "Status report," Greg ordered, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had been preparing for this moment for 3,000 years. 17 alien government coalitions have declared war on the Guardian Network, reported Colonel Benoit Adams from his position at the intelligence station. The Drachmoth Empire, Zephyrian Republic, and Thek Confederacy are leading the largest alliance, combined fleet strength approaching 40,000 vessels. Greg studied the holographic display, showing enemy movements across the galaxy. The alien fleets were impressive by their standards, armed with the best weapons their civilizations could produce. They had no idea they were bringing primitive tools to fight gods. And the Devourer scouts? 12 advance units have breached the Galactic Rim, answered Dr. Amy Clark from her monitoring station. They're moving faster than our projections suggested. First contact with inhabited systems in approximately 18 days. Greg felt the weight of 3 millennia of preparation settling on his shoulders. The Guardian Network had sacrificed everything to be ready for this moment, but now they faced the nightmare scenario, fighting both the Devourers and the very species they were trying to protect. "Initiate Protocol 7, he ordered. "Show them what they're really fighting." Deep in space, the Drachmoth battle fleet under command Admiral Kextar approached the human installation at Wolf 359 with confidence born of numerical superiority. The Drachmoth had brought 800 ships to destroy what appeared to be a single human station. It should have been a massacre. Admiral Kextar watched in growing confusion as his sensors detected only minimal defensive activity from the human installation. The station wasn't even raising shields or powering weapons. It sat motionless in space, seeming to ignore the approaching fleet entirely. "Sir," reported his weapons officer, "the human station is broadcasting a message." "Let's hear it." The transmission was brief and mechanical. "Admiral Kextar, you are approaching a Guardian Network installation during a galactic emergency. Your attack will delay defensive preparations against the Devourer threat. You have 30 seconds to reconsider." Kextar laughed, the sound echoing through his command bridge. 30 seconds? Tell the humans they have 30 seconds to surrender before we reduce their station to scrap metal. The human response came exactly 30 seconds later, but it wasn't words. Reality twisted around the Drachmoth fleet as space itself became a weapon. Kextar watched in horror as his ships began to stretch and distort, their hulls flowing like liquid as the fundamental forces holding them together were selectively modified. But the humans weren't trying to destroy the fleet. Instead, the ships found themselves frozen in space, their engines disabled and weapon systems shut down, but their life support and communications still functioning. The entire fleet had been neutralized without a single casualty. "This is Guardian. Station Wolf 359," came the human transmission. "Your vessels have been rendered inoperable but not destroyed. Emergency life support will function for 72 hours. We suggest you use this time to reconsider your priorities. Devourer scouts are currently 18 days from the Outer Rim." Captain Ben Adams commanded the defense of the Centauri colonies, as human installations across the galaxy faced similar attacks. The pattern was always the same. Alien fleets approached with overwhelming force, only to find themselves outmatched by technology that treated the laws of physics as suggestions, rather than rules. But Ben's attention was focused on something far more disturbing than the alien attacks. His sensors had detected the first Devourer probe entering inhabited space, and what he saw challenged every assumption about the enemy they faced. "Dr. Ross, are you seeing this data?" Dr. Carol Ross studied the sensor readings with growing alarm. "The probe isn't attacking the colony. It's studying it. Look at these scan patterns. It's analyzing their technology, their biology, their social structures. Ben watched as the mechanical probe dissected the alien settlement with surgical precision, taking samples and recording data before moving on to the next target. The Devourers weren't mindless destroyers. They were conducting research, learning about the galaxy they were preparing to consume. "Send a priority transmission to Guardian Command," Ben ordered. "The Devourers are more sophisticated than our models predicted. They're gathering intelligence for their main force." The transmission reached Guardian Command just as the network received devastating news from deep space observatories. The main Devourer fleet wasn't 50 years away as originally calculated. It was accelerating, using technology that bent space-time to reduce travel time. They would arrive in less than 2 years. Dr. Helen Foster worked frantically in the Guardian archives, searching for any information that might help them understand the enemy better. The ancient human records contained detailed analyses of previous Devourer conquests, but most of the data painted a picture of inevitable defeat. "They adapt to everything," Helen muttered, reading reports from the destruction of the Andromeda Galaxy. Energy weapons, kinetic weapons, biological weapons, even reality-altering technology. The Devourers analyze each attack and develop countermeasures within hours. But buried in the deepest archives, she found something that gave her hope. A single line in an ancient report. Devourer adaptation appears limited to technologies they can analyze and understand. Recommend investigation of techniques based on principles they cannot perceive. The Guardian Network had spent 3,000 years developing exactly such techniques. Their weapons didn't just use advanced technology, they operated on mathematical principles that existed outside normal space-time. The Devourers might be able to adapt to conventional weapons, but could they adapt to attacks that came from dimensions they couldn't perceive? Meanwhile, the war between humans and aliens reached a turning point when the Galactic Council received an unexpected transmission. It came from the Rigel system, where a Devourer scout had just finished its analysis of a major alien colony. The message was simple but terrifying. Biological and technological analysis complete. Species classification, suitable for conversion. Initiating preliminary consumption protocols. The colony's 8 billion inhabitants had 6 hours to evacuate before the Devourer scout began converting their world into raw materials for the main fleet. But there were no ships available to carry 8 billion people, and nowhere safe to take them even if ships existed. That's when the Guardian Network made a decision that would change the course of the war. Human vessels, moving faster than anything in the galaxy, appeared throughout the Rigel system. They didn't negotiate with local authorities or ask permission. They simply began evacuating the population, using transport technology that moved entire cities at once. The evacuation took 4 hours. In that time, the Guardian Network saved 8 billion lives, moving them to protected worlds deep in human space. The aliens who had been trying to destroy human installations suddenly found themselves rescued by the very people they considered enemies. But the most shocking moment came when the Devourer scout began its consumption of the now empty Rigel colony. Guardian Network vessels engaged the mechanical invader, and for the first time in galactic history, someone fought a Devourer unit and won. The battle lasted only minutes, but its implications were staggering. The Devourer scout was destroyed, completely eliminated by weapons that it couldn't adapt to or counter. For the first time in millions of years of conquest, the Devourers had met an enemy they couldn't overcome. News of the victory spread across the galaxy within hours, carried by the same communication networks the aliens had been using to coordinate attacks on human installations. Suddenly, the war between humans and aliens seemed less important than the approaching swarm that threatened all biological life. One by one, alien governments began sending messages to the Guardian Network. Not surrenders, but requests for protection. The proud Zephyrian Republic asked for evacuation assistance for their core worlds. The militant Thek Confederacy requested Guardian Network oversight of their defensive preparations. The galaxy was finally beginning to understand what humanity had known for 3,000 years. When extinction comes from outside, all internal, conflicts become meaningless. The only choice was to stand together under human protection, or face the Devourers alone and watch civilization burn. The main Devourer fleet arrived at the edge of the galaxy like a storm made of metal and malice. General Luke Morgan watched from the Guardian Command Center as long-range sensors revealed the true scope of the threat they faced. The swarm stretched across light years, containing billions of individual units that moved with perfect coordination toward their target. "Final count is in," reported Captain Nathan Bell from the Fleet Coordination Station. 47 billion Devourer units, just as the archives predicted. They're maintaining formation and approach vector directly toward the galactic core. Luke studied the tactical display with the calm focus that came from 3,000 years of preparation. The Guardian Network had known this day would come, and they had sacrificed their active civilization to be ready for it. Now it was time to prove that sacrifice had been worthwhile. Status of the galactic evacuation? 93% complete, answered Dr. Carol Ross. All core worlds have been moved to protected zones. Remaining populations are in systems. We can defend with portable shields. The evacuation had been humanity's first display of their true technological capabilities. Entire planets had been relocated, moved through folded space to positions behind Guardian Network defensive lines. Billions of alien civilians now lived in systems protected by human technology, while their military forces prepared for the greatest battle in galactic history. "Sir," called out Colonel Tony Wright from his position at the Strategic Planning Station, "the Devourer advance units are beginning their attack pattern. They're targeting inhabited systems on the outer rim." Luke nodded grimly. The Devourers always followed the same strategy: consume the weakest targets first, using their mass to build more units while advancing toward the galactic center. But this time, they would face an enemy that had been preparing for them longer than most species had existed. "Initiate Protocol Omega," Luke ordered. "Begin stellar artillery deployment." Across the galaxy, Guardian Network installations revealed their ultimate purpose. What had appeared to be defensive platforms were actually nodes in a vast machine designed to weaponize the cosmos itself. Stars became artillery pieces, their fusion fires directed through folded space to strike targets thousands of light years away. Black holes became shields, their event horizons positioned to absorb Devourer attacks. The first stellar bombardment struck the Devourer advance units with the force of a dozen supernovas. Entire sections of the mechanical swarm simply vanished, erased by directed stellar fire that traveled through dimensions the Devourers couldn't perceive or defend against. But the enemy adapted quickly. Within hours, the surviving Devourer units had analyzed the attack and began deploying countermeasures. They couldn't stop the stellar artillery directly, but they could predict its targeting patterns and disperse their formations to minimize damage. Dr. Amy Clark worked frantically at her analysis station, studying the Devourer response patterns. "They're learning faster than our models predicted," she reported. "At this rate, they'll develop effective counters to our primary weapons within days." Luke felt the weight of galactic survival pressing down on him. The Guardian Network had always known the Devourers would adapt, but their calculations had assumed more time to work with. If the enemy could neutralize stellar artillery, humanity would need to reveal weapons they had hoped to keep in reserve. "Contact Admiral Stone," Luke ordered. "Tell him to prepare the reality modification arrays." Captain Nathan Bell led the combined human-alien fleet that would attempt the most desperate gambit in the history of warfare. The plan was simple in concept, but staggering in execution. They would assault the Devourer Command Nexus, the central intelligence that coordinated the entire swarm. The fleet was unlike anything that had ever assembled. Human vessels that bent space around them flew alongside alien ships equipped with Guardian Network technology. Zephyrian energy masters worked with human reality engineers to create weapons that could strike across multiple dimensions simultaneously. "All ships report ready," Nathan announced over the fleet communication system. "Remember, we only get one chance at this. The Devourer Command Nexus is protected by 17 billion units. We have to punch through their defenses and reach the core before they can adapt to our attack patterns." The assault began with a bombardment that twisted reality itself. Space folded and compressed as human weapons created temporary wormholes that bypassed devourer shields. Alien vessels fired through dimensional rifts, striking targets from directions that didn't exist in normal space-time. But as the battle raged, Nathan made a discovery that changed everything he thought he knew about their enemy. The Devourer. Command Nexus wasn't a machine intelligence, it was biological, or had been once. Deep inside the mechanical shell, his sensors detected neural patterns that were disturbingly familiar. "Dr. Ross, are you seeing this?" Nathan called out over the communication link to the research team monitoring the battle. Carol studied the data streaming from Nathan's sensors with growing horror. Those neural patterns, they match records from the Guardian archives. The Devourer. Command Intelligence is using the brain patterns of the last galaxy's Guardian species. The terrible truth became clear as the human fleet fought its way through Devourer defenses. The mechanical swarm wasn't an alien invasion. It was what remained of another galaxy's attempt to defend itself. The Guardians of that distant galaxy had been converted, turned into the intelligence that now guided their former enemies. "It's a trap," Carol whispered. "The Devourers don't just consume civilizations, they convert their protectors. They turn each galaxy's guardians into the weapon they use to attack the next galaxy." Nathan felt ice in his veins as he realized what this meant. If the Devourers succeeded in converting the Guardian network, humanity would become the intelligence that guided the attack on the next galaxy. The cycle of consumption would continue, with human minds directing the destruction of countless other civilizations. But the discovery also revealed a weakness. The converted Guardian intelligence was still fundamentally biological, still constrained by the limitations of biological thought processes. It could adapt and learn, but it couldn't transcend its original nature. The Guardian network could. In the deepest levels of the command center, the sleeping humans who formed the core of the network made a decision that would determine the fate of two galaxies. They had prepared for this moment for 3,000 years, designing their consciousness to exist beyond the boundaries of normal space-time. As the Devourer swarm closed in on the galactic core, the Guardian network implemented its final protocol. The sleeping humans didn't just control their weapons through technology. They became the weapons, their consciousness expanding beyond physical form to manipulate reality directly. The effect was immediate and devastating. Across the galaxy, Devourer units found themselves fighting an enemy that existed in dimensions they couldn't perceive. Human consciousness, freed from biological constraints, reached across space-time to disrupt the fundamental forces that held the mechanical swarm together. The Devourers tried to adapt, but how do you counter an attack that comes from outside reality itself? Their converted Guardian intelligence, still limited by biological thought patterns, couldn't comprehend weapons that operated beyond the physical universe. The final battle lasted only hours. When it was over, the Devourer swarm was gone, not destroyed but converted into raw materials for Guardian network reconstruction projects. The threat that had consumed dozens of galaxies was finally ended, but victory came with a price. The Guardian network had transcended physical existence to defeat the Devourers. They could never return to normal biological life. They would remain, as disembodied consciousness, eternal guardians watching over the galaxy they had sacrificed everything to protect. Administrator Peter King stood in the newly constructed Galactic Protectorate headquarters, addressing representatives from every species in the galaxy. The old governments had been dissolved, replaced by a single authority dedicated to preventing another Devourer-level threat from ever arising. "The Guardian Network has made the ultimate sacrifice to protect galactic civilization," Peter announced. "They will continue to watch over us, but they can no longer live among us. It falls to us, the protected species, to build a civilization worthy of their sacrifice." The new order was absolute, but benevolent. Humanity's transcended guardians would prevent wars, guide technological development, and ensure that no species ever again faced extinction. Other races would live and grow under human protection, but they would never again make the kinds of decisions that threatened galactic survival. As Peter concluded his address, Earth appeared in the viewing window behind him. The planet was no longer hidden. its massive orbital installations visible to all as a reminder of the power that protected them. The Guardians were awake, and they would never sleep again. The galaxy was safe, but it was no longer free. Humanity had become the eternal watchers, sacrificing their own existence to ensure that biological life would continue. They had won the greatest victory in galactic history, but the cost was everything they had once been. The lost Guardians of Earth had awakened, and the galaxy would never be the same.